Okay, so my role is basically to make bots happy, but it's early in the morning and I would like to make some humans happy in between. So I first would like to make sure that you're all aware that the presentation is public and on Wikipedia. I also tweeted the link. The easiest way is that if you go to the English Wikipedia and type in WP:/JATSCon 2015, all in capitals, and then you can follow the talk at your own pace, at your own skin, and whatever. And you can edit it if anything is wrong or incomplete or things like that. You can also, for those who are watching the live stream, I probably don't have to say that, but for the others, you can watch the live stream if that is simpler. The topic today is adapting JATS to support data citation. It's a bit odd that I'm standing here because I was just peripherally involved with both of them. But the point was I was involved with both of them, and there were not too many. And yeah, someone got it presented, so that's what I'm trying to do here. The talk is available in multiple formats. You can choose whichever you want. I'll go for this one, which is basically a nice interface. It's a non-open interface to Wikipedia, but it's nice. And since the content is available in other formats as well that are more open, I could bear with that. Since it's Earth Day, I also dug out some things that might be relevant, and now I want you to kind of prepare yourself for the talk, because we're talking about citing data, just to enjoy some data, audio and visual data. Try to guess what it is. The first one who knows what it is, I'll buy you a beer. In case that's too difficult, I'll provide some visual stimulation, something else completely unrelated, but it's a visual, it's a video. If you know that one, you get a beer as well.
Sounds for Sun?
No, but keep going, guessing. Not too bad. Sound of the Earth, that's kind of okay, but please try a little more specific. Okay, so the video is faded out already. I'll leave the sound on a little bit. And then, well, somebody has just updated the presentation, so I'll just, I don't know who that was. I'll just update the presentation and keep the sound on for your benefit. We have had, now everybody should awake, right? Those who are not awake, please raise your hand. Okay. On Monday, we had a tutorial that gave an overview of what's new in JATS since 1.0. That included those things about data citation. So if you were there, then you have a good reason to still sleep. If you were not, then here's some background on why data citations are important and why we try to integrate that with JATS. So first, data should be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. That's kind of obvious if you think about it, but not many people have thought about it. That's why there was a group that actually worked this out. And there's another group that was working on how to actually cite data. You know, bots, I'm here to make bots happy, and the bots, they feed on data. But good bots also like to tell the world which data they have fed on, and which data are good data, and so on. Maybe I should really switch off the sound now. But yeah, you lost 2 beers, right? So, yeah, well, you should listen to my talk, right? So the data citation principles have been worked out by a large group of people who came from many different disciplines, and they tried to condense basically common practice and some wishful thinking into a set of principles. I won't go through them in detail, but I've taken out some of them. So in the scholarly literature, whenever and wherever a claim relies upon data, the corresponding data should be cited. And so we should basically put a pointer that the data exist, basically. And then the data should have a unique identifier. They should be accessible. and there should be some interoperability in how to bring different kinds of data together. On top of that, some agencies like the NIH, they have public access policies or similar policies which contain statements like this. NIH will explore ways to advance data as a legitimate form of scholarship through data citation and other means. So now we have policy documents that make some statements about data citation. Those statements are not yet machine readable, but we're working on that. And so the idea came up to basically explore to what extent JATS would allow to cite data in accordance with those data citation principles. And of course, in principle, we could say, we could always try it with what is there in JATS already, but maybe it's not all there. So there's two basic approaches you can take. Either you try to get the tags into JATS itself, or you work on a superset extension of JATS. And we have examples for both. So the extending the JATS itself, for instance, was done with the access and license indicators that were already mentioned yesterday. And an example for a superset extension is TextPub, developed by Terry Catapano, who's in the room. And so the group who was interested in the data citation integration into JATS followed the following process. First, we surveyed the existing citation infrastructure in JATS 1.0, I should have said here. Please correct this. And we then tried to bring that together with those data citation principles and common practices. Then there was some remote discussion around that, basically in preparation for a one-day workshop in London. We had this one-day workshop, and this, I must say, was one of the most effective ones I've ever attended. Like, you had a group of 30 people, and it was a standards meeting. So you basically don't expect coming out with something that you can tell anyone anything useful about. But we basically, anything that I'm telling you was basically decided on that day. And I'm still amazed that this is possible. So one of the first things we did during that meeting was to decide that we would go for extending JATS rather than for a superset extension, basically because there's a lot of citation infrastructure already there, and we just have to tweak things here and there. Second, we spent the rest of the day basically on reaching some agreement on which new elements, attributes, or attribute values we might actually need. Then later on, after we had kind of written the notes from the meeting up properly, those suggestions were submitted to the JATS Standing Committee. They had a look at them and they responded. They basically took the suggestions as we had made them with some minor modifications. And then they incorporated it into the draft JATS 1.1D2. And they recently adopted, the article, the license indicators as JATS 1.1D3 on top of JATS 1.1D2, and this has now been proposed to be adopted as JATS 1.1. So that's kind of the trajectory on which data citation are about to become part of the standard. Now, let's have a look at some of those new things, actually. So, first thing that was proposed as a new element, version. And this refers then naturally mostly to the version of data, because data often comes in a versioned fashion. And we had some provisions for versioning in JATS already. That's basically the addition. But the versioning of a book is kind of different from the versioning of data. There's also the version attribute for the tech math element, but that is really specific to the version of tech or LaTeX that you're using. That's not really applicable to data either. The second element, maybe you should have a look at how version looks like. So here, so it can be used in this context. Then data title. So whenever you're citing anything in a reference list, you have to give it a title, but the existing element was not title but article title. But article title is not really applicable to data, and so we kind of suggested that there should be an analogous element to article title and just call it data title. What we will do if we're talking about software citation, then whether we're going to have software title or something, or whether we're going to kind of work all those titles together in some fashion, I'll leave that up to you. Then the data title could have a source statement, which would then identify the data repository. So here we can look at an example. Typically, the data would go into a mixed citation element, and then you have here the data title, and here is the source. Apart from those new elements, we also have new attributes that have been suggested. So the assigning authority attribute is suggested for the elements xlink and pubid. So here is an example. Here's the assigning authority is crossref, because that DOI is a crossref DOI. Then the pubid type, it used to be used to specify authority, and now it's only used to specify actually the type of identifier. Pubid type, the type of publication identifier. Then pubid is an existing element that, and we suggested that it should get linking attributes, because many people like to actually link a DOI when they display it. And so this helps with actually making that possible. The elements and new attributes have been complemented by new values for attribution, for attributes. And these include publication type. So, so far, publication type could have a number of things, but it couldn't have anything that was really related to data. And so we just suggested, okay, add data as a new publication type. And similarly, in person group, we created a new value, curator, basically because none of the existing ones were really that applicable to describe that aspect of data. Many other aspects of data, like the creator and things like that, they were already covered, but for the curator we didn't have anything existing, and so we suggested that one. So again, here is an example, mixed citation, and here you have the person group tagged as curator, and yeah, data title and so on. The pubid type had, well, it already existed, and we added three new values, basically for accession numbers, like if you accessed something like a GenBank entry, it has an accession number, and these things yeah, can now be marked up with this accession value. Then there is the archival resource key, ARC, and there is also the handle identifier. And all of these are in lowercase by standard and so on. So here's an example with a pubid type. Here, pubid type accession number, and the assigning authority is PDB, the Protein Data Bank, and there you have, you can have a pubid type DOI. So we are trying to bring those things together that we've cited. Okay, there's many more examples in the full paper actually. And the, maybe I should just show that, walk you a little bit through the paper. Because we really thought that it would be useful to have a set of examples right there in the paper so that everyone has a first point of call. And of course, in the long run, we'll work on bringing those examples in the documentation. And yeah, we invite you to submit further examples and so on. So here we have a long, long list of examples. I'll not go through these. but we really try to bring in many different aspects, also already in view of a potential review of these practices by the JATS for R working group. Okay, anyone found out about that iceberg? Oh. Yeah, well, so the sound that you were hearing was of an iceberg, and the video that we're seeing was of a belemnite. That is like a fossilized, it's a fossil. It's actually, I did that video as part of my PhD. Because people sometimes ask me, well, are you really a researcher? Yes, I am, and I like to talk about my research as well. It's just that I'm normally invited to talk about other stuff. And so, yeah, the sound was of an iceberg, and it actually came from a paper, and it was kind of not obvious how to tag that properly, because it was in the supplement of a scholarly, of a typical article in Science, but we got it from a repository. And so the repository is Pangea, Earth Day, right? So we basically have this suggested solution where we have a mixed citation and then basically a data citation inside it. Not sure whether that's the best way, but yeah, that is then maybe something we can look at in discussion. So, outlook. What is coming next? First, we all basically have to digest this. I found it interesting that for those people who were engaged from the data citation community, once the kind of the JATS standing committee had said yes, the enthusiasm about this was kind of lower. Basically, they thought their job is accomplished, but on the JATS end, the job just starts. And me standing between the two, it's kind of an interesting position. So what I see upcoming is certainly that JATS for R will review that. The group has its own priority list, and data citation wasn't on there. So we'll see how that figures out. Certainly, we're doing outreach into the community. That's part of the role of this talk. And in this regard, especially from the JATS for R perspective, the data citation elements are very interesting because they're new. So basically everyone has to start now, and so we don't have all that history of everyone doing it in a different fashion. So if JATS for R is quick enough to provide recommendations, then we could actually have a standardized standard at some point for these kind of things. That would be really cool. And so if you have already examples of how you're tagging data, please get in touch so that we can kind of get an overview of all these practices and then make recommendations that are actually useful and that can be adopted by the community at large. Since this was, well, my first venture into standardization anyway, but for some other people it was also the first one, so it may well be that the way data citation is handled in JATS has to be adapted, and I'm now confident that this is actually possible and doable in like reasonable, not glacial times. One of my personal favorites to do next is adding license information to references in general. That's something that I work on Wikipedia already. So we basically want to show for every reference that is cited on a Wikipedia article what the license of that reference is, so that people who want to reuse the content can be informed that here's actually something you can reuse. Here's an article about the topic, maybe it contains an image, so if you're looking for some slides, you can actually use some open figures to illustrate your slides. And once we're doing this for classical citations, we're also thinking about how to do that for data citations. We're in the process of kind of adapting the citation system in Wikipedia so that it can handle citations, and it would be nice to kind of coordinate that with whoever is working on similar things on the publishing end. So I would appreciate publishers or vendors who are working on marking up references. If you have any plans to indicate the licensing of those cited references, please get in touch. So I'm much quicker than the time allocated to that, but I really would like this to be interactive, and I would say I'm opening the floor for discussion, and I hope that those who are more knowledgeable about the standard itself can then chime in and address some of the technical details. Debbie?
Debbie Lapierre, Mulberry Technologies. I actually have two questions, but since we're early, I feel I can. My first is, I read your paper, and you've got a whole lot more lovely examples than the tag libraries were able to procure, because we got your first samples. And I'm assuming those are public and the tag libraries can steal. Am I right?
Yeah, the entire paper is CC0.
Fantastic. We will go through and try to upgrade and update our examples. It won't be there for the next release because the next release just came out, but one after that will do it. Second question. I found that last point really interesting, that you want to add license reference information on the citation level. Would you expect an element like ALI license ref inside an element like mixed citation? Are you suggesting that?
I'm not sure yet whether that should actually be an ALI thing, because I have yet to come to grips as to what the ALI means in terms of tagging JATS, because it's relatively new. But I would like to have some element in there that provides information as to the licensing of the thing that is being cited, yes. And I can show you a prototype on how it works on Wikipedia. Here we go. We actually have a video for that, and since we have time, I'll just play it. Sound, please.
Of great interest to you on Wikipedia. So interesting that you actually click through to the references. You're excited to read the original material, but all of a sudden, you're foiled. You've hit a paywall. What if there were icons next to the reference signaling whether a person may read or reuse the work cited? This would be like a restaurant menu where there are icons that indicate things like spicy or vegetarian. If the source is open access, we can reuse the source text, media, and metadata on Wikimedia projects. Readers and editors can deep link into article sections, reuse images, and track the use of citations. Wiki Project Open Access has developed the infrastructure to make this happen. Collaborating with the community, we can engage the literature on Wikisource, Wikimedia Commons, and Wikidata. Wikipedia readers and editors can connect and leverage this citation infrastructure. On an article such as malaria, readers can access rich content made visible to them like this, when editors choose to use the open access signaling tool suite. Wikipedia is the free encyclopedia that anyone can edit. Open access extends that freedom to the source material itself and beyond.
Okay, so there's actually a big JATS component to that project. So upon citation of the article on Wikipedia, we will want to check whether it's openly licensed, and if it is, we will import the full text into Wikisource, which is a sister project of Wikipedia, by converting it from the JATS into MediaWiki XML. And there, again, the inconsistencies in the use of JATS come in. They are a big barrier. We have a prototype running for more than a year, but we have spent the last year just fiddling around with those edge cases where things are inconsistent across publishers. And so if JATS were working more consistently, then this project would advance faster, and then you could actually see in Wikipedia articles already the licensing of these cited references, and if there is anything open, we will pick out the images, and you could also deep link into that particular sentence in the source article that is the basis for the statement in the Wikipedia article. I would like to see something similar added to the scholarly literature as well.
Evan Owens, Senveo, and also the Chorus Technical Working Group. This is an interesting idea. and it could be a great value to the community to show the license information, the references, but you do have to make provision for dynamic changes to that information, because it isn't, publishers, sometimes an article will be published and 3 weeks later the author decides to pay for gold open access. So it changed to gold open access 3 weeks after it was published, or it's available 1 year after publication, and so on. So it's going to be a challenge to deal with the non-fixed data.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
And I welcome interest from Chorus in this project. So for practical purposes, we start with those articles where the license information does not change. But in the long run, we plan to query the Crossref database, and Crossref are gathering that information. And if it has a start and end date, then we will pick it up. And Wikipedia, fortunately, has version control, so you can update it if there is new information. And so in the long run, I think we can model that. Whatever model you come up with in terms of the timeline of your licensing, you can probably model it, and we would appreciate help from your end. Martin?
Getting back to data citation, it was very nice working in this group, which was really focused, and we have made good progress. But of course, there is sort of the sad truth that data citation doesn't happen in reference lists, but for the most part, identifiers to gene bank and other things, they are just in the text. So can you just, that's like a whole set of work in itself, and of course also covered in JATS in many places. But could you just add just some thoughts on that, how you see that moving forward?
I actually have lots of thoughts on that, and I should have prepared some examples on that, because I actually have a large collection of screenshots where I think data citations are misplaced, and they should come to the real reference section. Typically, that includes just citations from the plain text body without any further markup. It also often includes relegating the stuff to supplementary materials, even typically PDFs. And so from the machine-readable perspective, it's really hard to pull out those identifiers or any such citation information. On the other hand, I don't think it's part of the JATS community to issue policies on that. We are basically just implementing whatever policies are there. We are there to reflect in the document that there has been such a thing, and if it was somewhere in the text body, then yes, it would be nice to mark it up in the text body. But we are not there to make those editorial decisions. But since some publishers are here, who and maybe from the technical end or production, maybe sometimes you talk to your editorial departments, and that would be a thing to bring up. Sasha?
Sasha Schwartzman, OSA. I'm sorry. Very interesting work. It seems to me the incentive for data citation comes from the desire of the researchers, data contributors to get recognition. And it can come in different flavors. From the commercial point of view, commercial abstracting and indexing services such as ISI's data citation index will bring that recognition, and in that respect, I was wondering if this proposed initiative is going to be palatable and harvestable to the data citation index. From the non-commercial point of view, if the author or contributor to the data wants to get recognition, it will be something like, I assume, cited by, which most publishers collect by polling Crossref. That brings an interesting question in my mind, which is whether or not Crossref is ready to deal with another data type, citation type. There are, of course, journals and MOOCs and less common article types. This one is relatively new and even less common. And if the DOI is already assigned, for example, will the publisher be able, will the, let's say, contributor to the data set be able to go to Crossref, find out who cited this data set, and get the credit. If the creators of the data citation, will they be able to deposit this the information of the metadata about the data citation into Crossref or others, because not every citation, not every data set has a DOI. So my question really is how in practice the creators of this data objects will be able to get credit. That goes beyond JATS, obviously, but we have to think about it because that's an ultimate goal, I think.
So Daniel, I can answer part of that if you want me to.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I'm Chuck Kosher with Crossref. When depositing metadata with Crossref, we have two mechanisms for establishing a relationship between the article that's being deposited, or the DOI is being registered for. So the first one that's been around for a long time is the citation list. And so that is the bibliography of the article. And in that citation list, we can accept XML that breaks out the thing being cited. So that would typically be the volume title, author, article title, chapter title, that kind of bibliographic stuff. It also can include the what we call an unstructured citation. That's just the text, the narrative that is the exact copy of what's in the reference in bibliography. And the third thing that you can have in there is a DOI. And so when a publisher is depositing with Crossref their citation lists and they have a DOI to a DataCite DOI or some other DOI, they can just insert that into their citation list. So when someone asks Crossref, what does this article cite, this external entity, the DOI, maybe a DataCite DOI, will be listed. Okay, so that's already in place. But of course, that is the bibliography of the article. So the other mechanism that's in place is relationships. General relationships is how I kind of refer to them. And the publisher can include metadata that says this article is related to, and the type of relationship is an enumerated list, and we've collected that from a variety of sources, Dublin Core and a whole host of others. And so the publisher can claim that this article is related to this other thing, and that other thing can have any kind of an identifier, including just a URL. Okay, so it doesn't, the data doesn't have to have a DOI to come in under that mechanism. So we've got a lot in place already to accept this data from publishers. The other thing that's underway with DataCite is that DataCite will be able to come to Crossref and say, this data claims to have a relationship to some article. And that is essentially a deposit of metadata to Crossref. And it's establishing a relationship between the article and the piece of data in DataCite. It has to have a DataCite DOI, of course. So here's a mechanism where an article can be coupled to a piece of data by somebody other than the publisher. And right now, the plan is for DataCite to be able to do this.
Thanks. Yeah, that was more comprehensive than I could have done. On the other hand, there's a number of things at the Crossref level that are already going in this direction. So for instance, we've built a tool that checks for DOIs being cited or uncited on Wikipedia. And if this is a DOI that points to some data set, then we have some live tracking of data citations. And the idea is to aggregate that information at the DOI level and together with all the other citations that happen. And if more people are interested in handling other identifiers, the code for that is open source. I'd really be glad to work on that together. Anything else on data citation, JATS? Okay, so you lost to beer, but you got some 15 minutes in exchange.